another episode of The Donkey and the Bee with the biatch here, Laura, and the jackass over there, Brett.
Well, tonight we are talking about how to get from the middle class to financial freedom, how to avoid the pitfalls that are there. We get caught in this middle class trap. So I want to hit that and then say, here are 2 actionable items that you can do to hit your financial freedom goals.
Okay, well, what are the items? Let's do this. You said 2 actionable items. Give us the goods, huh?
So where I want to start with this is the family profit. And I think that we look at our family budget just like a business looks at it, in the same way we look at our businesses. And I would say this to people: if they are trying to get their financial act together, you need to look at your family's budget just like a business. And a business has a profit or a loss, right? They actually have a profit and loss sheet. So therefore, you need to look at your family budget like that. Do you have profit at the end of the month, at the end of the year? It doesn't matter if you make $100,000 or $1 million a year. If you spend it all, right, your expenses are equal to your income. Therefore, you have no profit. You would look at a business like this and you would say, hey, you know what? That business is not profitable. They don't cash flow. That's not a good business, right? It doesn't matter if it's a huge business or a small business. It's really the same thing for your family. If you get to the end of the month and you have nothing left, if you're saving almost nothing, or you have a big income and you have huge expenses and you're saving a couple grand and it's just like 1% of your family's income, then you're failing, right? That business is failing. Your family is financially failing. You should literally look at it that way. When you go on Shark Tank and you see these guys come up and they're trying to pitch their business and they have these huge numbers and they're like, oh, but we're losing money every single year for the last 3 years. Like, no, you get no deal, right? Your business sucks. You got to get your finances together. It's really the same thing. It doesn't matter if you have a huge income, but you also have the Denali and the boat and the RV and you're taking all the trips, right? Like, okay, great, you have this wonderful lifestyle, but your family business sucks. It has no profit, and therefore you're making no investments, you're buying no assets, and you're going nowhere. You're living in the middle class trap.
Yeah, but you look so great to everybody else, right? Isn't that the whole goal, right?
That's the whole point, right?
That's literally
to look like you have your crap together.
Everybody wants that. They just want to look like they have it all together. And I think that is where people go wrong. It's the keeping up with the Joneses. We all hear it. We say it all the time. But I think it's just getting past that. And I see it all the time with people I encounter of like, well, I can't drive that kind of car. Or, I can't wear those kind of clothes, or I can't wear it's like, who cares? It's all in your own mind. And so I like the analogy of the family profit with the business profit. I think business people can understand that, but I also think that people who aren't in business can also understand that. Like, if you're not making a profit in a business, you're not going to make it. And so I think it really can kick yourself in the face if you see it that way of like, oh man, well, my family profit, we don't have any at the end of the month. Well, then what are you going to do about it? I think that's where we come in. This is where this podcast, I think, is super important. I think hearing these 2 actionable steps we're going to talk about is something you can implement to change that.
So we've been implementing this for over a decade, and we'll break this into 2 parts tonight, talking about budgeting and then talking about increasing your income. And we've done this in stages and really get to the place now where there's just way more money coming in that we do spend because we really didn't adjust our lifestyle very much. So honestly, every single year, the amount of our family profit, our savings goes up percentage-wise. Every single year, we save more and more and more, right? And you see some of those people that say like they save more than 90% of their income. I remember thinking about those people when we were in college and broke as crap, thinking like, oh my gosh, like we're nearly there now, almost saving almost everything. We have a great lifestyle, but we kept it to these type of systems, budgeting first, and then focusing your attention on creating more income. And therefore investing because you have that family profit, which only therefore increases more income in this circle of just like wealth. It just grows and grows and grows and compounds.
I think when people hear the word budget, it's also like hearing the word exercise. You need to do it, but you just don't really want to do it, right? And so I think we had to really change our mindset or outlook on the word and what it actually meant, because it wasn't like it was like caging us in. And I think that's how a lot of people think. It's like caging me into something. where I think it's like the opposite. It's that discipline is freedom kind of analogy where you have discipline in your finances by creating a budget, and then therefore down the line you have freedom in your finances. And so I want people to see it as that. It's not something that's constraining or it's not shackling you down. It's actually the complete opposite of that. It's actually setting you free financially.
It is, but it sucks.
It does.
I hate
it really
budgeting.
Does. It does.
I'm just going to say
yeah, it does.
We've been on a budget for most of our marriage, and I think it's stupid and it sucks. But it's so important. So that's where I want to start tonight. If you don't have your family's profit together, if your finances are not on a path and a plan, this is literally where you start. It is the budget. Even though it does suck, right? You got to cut the fluff out of the budget. You don't got to live on beans and rice and all that kind of stuff where the people talk about, you can become a millionaire by cutting your Starbucks. That's crap, right? We're going to focus on making more money next. But let's get you to a place where you're not bleeding all sorts of excess funds. So I like to get to a place where you start by cutting at least 10% and then work your way down 15, 20%. Cut to a pretty reasonable but decent lifestyle, and then really go ahead and just maintain that. I think it took us about 6 months of trial and error, finding things that are okay for us to cut and living at a reasonable lifestyle, still going out to restaurants and having fun money and doing those things, but just not extravagant, right? Like, this is pretty reasonable. We can cut this, and therefore we were starting by having a family profit within those first few months, right? We had a decent income. I mean, we kind of started this waiting tables. It was a lot less than decent, right? But we cut our expenses down, and then we had we have a decent percentage, right? We weren't making very much money. I think we were saving a couple $100 a month back then. But that was a decent percentage for what we were doing, waiting tables in our young 20s at that point. But we took that principle, and then we just continued to maintain that. And our budgeting has changed and grown and evolved, and we have much higher expenses now than we did then. But percentage-wise, we've roughly kept the same kind of idea that we're going broke, right? We are saving our excess money to be able to invest, right? We are really putting all our chips on the table for that next asset that we're going to come to. And then that's going to have money babies. And we'll take that money with the new money that we've saved and bought the next asset, and really just started as early as you can and compound because you had the budgeting side. But if you didn't have the budgeting side, like most people, then it's all for naught. It doesn't matter if you got the raise or not. There's still no money at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've talked about this a few times in past episodes where we say that money that you put aside, that money that you save, is actually your future self's money. And so you don't want to be stealing from yourself, in essence. And so putting that money in a sacred account where you can't touch it, where it's something that you know it's growing, you know it's going in there, but you can't have access to it in case there is those, SOS emergency signs that you have to do. You get a flat tire, or someone gets sick and has to go to the hospital, or certain things that can happen in your life. You have a separate set for emergencies. And so I think it's important to note that that is your future self's money. Don't touch it. Keep it in a separate account and let it build.
For us personally, that was about a season of like 6 months. That was where all our focus and attention was. Let's get this dialed in. We got one of those apps. It synced to our bank. We did all that kind of stuff. And then really, we just transitioned into part 2 of this. And this is where I want to say the bread and butter of this is. The power is in the income. The power is not in the budgeting. You will not budget yourself into a millionaire status. You're just going to be saving a little bit extra, but you need that little bit extra to get started, right? And then you need to learn the lessons of, I'm not going to blow it all once I do increase my income. So I think really you just maintain the first part of this, the budgeting, and then you put all of your focus, your attention, your energy on the second part of this. How do I grow my income? And I think you really should try and find something to at least start out of the gate by increasing your income by 20%, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's picking up extra shifts, overtime, something to that effect. Let's get this up by 20%. Because honestly, if you're decreasing by 20% your budget, and then you're increasing your income by 20%, there's a net difference of 40%. And that's pure savings right there. That is family profit. That's not a small amount. And as you continue to grow and build wealth and compound, if you can bring in, 40% of your income as family profit, as savings to invest, man, that is some life-changing mojo right there. That's going to make a difference, and it's going to move down the chain pretty quick.
What I think is important to note is that we didn't say first increase your income and then budget. I think it's important to first budget and build and sustain those habits within your life so that when you do increase that income, you have those set, steady habits where you're not spending, on fluff that you shouldn't spend on. So that's an important thing. These go in order specifically so that you are learning and training, actually retraining yourself really is what it is, to set that money aside and to not spend on things that you do not need and know that that is your future self's money. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone understood those two things are kind of important. They're not flip-flopped. They shouldn't be flip-flopped, that it's in order purposefully so that you can sustain those habits.
Yeah, you really have to do well on both sides of these things. You have people who fail because they don't want to make a budget. They can't control their spending, and they're focusing their energy on the income side. And they may be getting raises. They may be picking up extra shifts, side hustles. But at the end of the month, they're still in the same place of their family business has zero profit because it's all going out the backside. Or you have people that don't focus on the income, right? They think money is bad. They have these subconscious programming, right? And they're budgeting and budgeting and budgeting and trying to save their way into retirement. That's not going to happen either. Really, you have to have both sides of this. But I want to stress that the power is on the income side. If you make $5,000 a month, you can reasonably only get down to $5,000 a month in budget. You can't budget less than zero, right? But if you're making $5,000 a month in income, you can double that to 10,000. You can triple that to 15. You could go to the moon with what your opportunities are. That has so much more exponential power. And I really think after you've stabilized with the budgeting side, you put all of your focus and your attention, not just you as the one person, the husband, the wife, whatever it is, you get yourself together with your spouse and you say, all right, babe, here is our plan. We're going to stabilize over here. Now, how do we increase this by 20%? What are you going to do? What am I going to do, right? How do we work this out so we can increase this income? And then what is our plan? How do we increase this again by another 10% next year, another 10% the following year? What can we do as we are creating this family profit, paying off bad debts? How do we invest this nest egg, right? How do we make money babies that we can bring those dollars in, put it with the new dollars we have, and just continue to do this? And that's really what we did. We started when we turned about 30 and started to learn this game and then started buying really cheap single family houses, right? And just okay, we can buy these, they're 100, 200 grand. And it was, every few months we were buying a new deal and we were raising outside funds and things like that. But we started learning this niche and compounding our assets, saving all of those income from the cash flow and then putting it with the family profit. And then it just snowballs. And honestly, it does start slow and it can be super discouraging. But that's why you got to get on the same page and say, babe, we are in this for the next 50 years. We need a blood pact right here. We got to commit to do this because
we never did that.
There might have been a little blood. But nonetheless, it's important and you get discouraged and life is not easy and financial freedom is not an easy goal, but it is achievable when you get on the same page and you take these steps.
So speaking of being on the same page, I think that's probably the number one, I don't want to say complaint, but maybe resistance to financial freedom or creating a budget or increasing your income is my spouse isn't on the same page as me. My spouse doesn't want to talk about this. Every time we talk about finances, my spouse just shoots me down. And so I think working backwards, I think is kind of a good way to maybe get on the same page. Sit down and be like, okay, where do you want to be financially together in 10 years? Okay, write those things down. I want all the credit card paid off. I want maybe the house paid off. I don't want any payments. I want everything paid off. Okay, write all that down. Okay, how much money, how much income do we want to make together? Okay, $250,000. And then work back from there. How do we achieve that goal? What are the steps that we can take in between now and those 10, 20, 30 years? What do we need to do to achieve that?
And you'll see, here's the sacrifice we have to do, right? It's not just we have to do these things. It's also we have to not do these things. We have to not spend this money. We have to not maybe have as much family time on certain times if one of us has to pick up that side job or something like that, right? And you just have to have hey, you know what? This is our family goal together and it's worth it. This is a short-term sacrifice. We are still young or middle-aged, right? We have another 50 or 30 years together in this life. And do we have anything to retire on? Do we have anything, financially speaking, when we get to that end of life stage? And we are in assisted living and memory care. We know that it can literally cost $500 to $1 million just to die. For one person, that's what it could cost, right? Like, it's stupid expensive. You have to be prepared for these things. And so let's just have that conversation and let's take some massive action on this stuff.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of The Donkey and the Bee. We will see you on the next one.